today was going to be episode 4, but I'm seeing the more I'm listening, I think, like, I'm kind of losing interest. I'll get into detail more at the end of all of this. So today will be episode 4 and 5 together because I listened to both. And because I just want to hurry up and get it over with at this point. So the next video might be me completing it all. So we'll see. So episode 4. Episode 4, I believe, is called Death Tape, and it's literally the live recording. It's about 45 minutes long of the last hours of people dying. And if you're very sensitive, that's not the episode for you. So I'm noticing throughout the series there were clips played from the day of the death earlier, because I actually hear the full dialogue of the woman pleading for the children, saying, hey, I'm not afraid to die, but I don't believe the children should die. And the brainwashing of the other people on the compound was disturbing to listen to. Like, they were cussing her out. Like, it was this one lady in the back, like, you should just shut the fuck up. Like, it... Yeah, I'm gonna just leave that there. So episode 4 was just them all in line. All you hear is babies screaming. One of the ladies gets on the mic and she's like, they're not crying because, which I believe I said this before, but I actually heard the full dialogue, not just a clip. They're not crying because it hurts. They're crying because it's bitter. Now, yesterday's video, I told y'all how, or maybe it was the day before that, but whatever, the effects of dying of cyanide poisoning. So can you imagine? And now I understand, like, I mean, some of them just sound like toddlers just like screaming no. And I mean, like if I heard a child screaming like that, I would have done something. Like if I heard my neighbor's child, well, none of them got kids, but hypothetically speaking, if I was home and I heard a child screaming like that, there's no calling the cops or anything. I'm busting in there. That's how dire of a situation it was. Like, these babies, can you imagine being a baby and like choking and vomiting until your brain just loses oxygen and you die? The children went first. Most of the mothers went with their children because, once again, can you imagine passing your baby off to somebody for them to put a syringe in them and your baby dies alone? No, you're going to want to hold your baby till, like, you know, they die. So most parents took the poison with their children, like, in their hand. So, well, most mothers. No shade to the fellas. I ain't hear no stories of y'all being brave. I heard a few, which we're gonna get into that. Oh, I can't stand this. Anywho, so yeah, it was disturbing to listen to. If you're sensitive, I will break that up into little sessions. My friends call me the Tin Man because they say I have no heart. I do have a heart. Listening to this actually bothered me, but I was able to finish it. So then episode 5 is now going into the, I guess, afterlife of everybody after I'm gonna start saying mass murder, because like, another thing is these people ain't wanna die. So I'm thinking it's just like a few, maybe 10 max. 87 people got away. So some people played dead in a ditch. Somebody's meemaw, grandmom, hid under her bed, and And the story with that is her sister, like her whole family that was there was diehard believers. And her sister was telling her, like, you better come, you better come. And she's like, no, I'm not coming. Which is interesting because I'm shocked because they weren't diehard believers. I'm shocked they didn't snitch on her, like, oh, my sister said she's not coming. So I don't know. But she hid under her bed until the following day. And like when she hid under her bed, after a while she just fell asleep. She goes outside the next day, it's nothing but flies all over these bodies. She was scared because like in her mind, that's the end of the world. You're out in the middle of nowhere. Everybody you loved is dead. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know where to go. So she literally went back in her cabin until the Guyanese officials that came to the compound later found her and like took her back to, I keep saying mainland. I forget what the main town is near Jonestown, but they took her back to like the main area. There were some temple members out to sea. So like Jonestown is right like on the water. So like, you know, Venezuela is on that northeastern side. So I don't know where they fishing or what, but there were some people out to sea. They avoided the massacre because they were out to sea. I don't know, was that planned or what? They didn't really get into details of that, but I'm thinking it was just like their weekly chore. Like maybe they ride their boats to Curacao every 2 weeks to get fish. Well, no, because they ain't eating that. Maybe supplies like medicine and stuff like that. Who knows? The baseball team was in the main town because, which one of them were Jim Jones' son. He survived. They were out in the mainland because there was a basketball tournament. His son was part of that team. Of course, a few people hid in the jungle. There were armed guards at the compound, like blocking you from running into the jungle, but once again, 900 plus people. There was probably some little gaps somewhere where people were able to leave before shit hit the fan. Maybe they knew like, oh, this is real. And that's another thing. Oh my gosh, listening to the death tape, they were saying how some people, no, so on this episode, episode 5, episode 4, we're done. We heard about death. Episode 5, they said some people, like people who survived this, or like some people believed it was another white night. Like they didn't believe they were really gonna die. So they were just like chilling, like, okay, another practice drill, not knowing it was the real deal. Oh, of course, some of the people on the tarmac that were shot survived. There was 3 people who were like together as a group, but I mean it was multiple people in the jungle, but this one group of 3 people, they were walking around the jungle for 3 days and literally was walking in circles because it's the jungle. Like once you in there, everything looks the same. They survived off of swamp water. One of the ladies is pregnant, which her story is interesting. Actually, I'm gonna just get into her story now. Her husband committed suicide, well, or was murdered during the massacre, and she was pregnant. She gets back to the States. She kept having, which a lot of them did, issues just with her mental health, which duh, like you were brainwashed all this time. And she kept having like these spells where she would get amnesia, like she would just totally forget stuff. So she totally forgot who her baby daddy was. And then she was convinced it wasn't her husband. Later on, she then felt it was this other guy that was on the compound. And then like police and stuff look into records for like a death certificate for him, and nobody like knew where his body was or anything. And then her son was loopy. I believe her son's name was Chad. He died. Did she kill herself? I believe she killed herself. But I know her son was loopy as well, which your parents, well, well, your mom at least, because you didn't really grow up with your dad. Oh, this was another weird thing with this story with her. But she signed, as soon as she had her baby, there was somebody else who was part of the temple that was like living in Cali, and but once again, she had amnesia and she was brainwashed. She let him sign the birth certificate stating that he was the father, but he was not the father. And then he was battling with her to get Chad, their son. And then of course, when he did get the rights or whatever to Chad, or took Chad, I don't know how that worked, the court then gave her back custody because Chad got with him and was like, I don't know, bull. Like, it was just like an unsafe environment for a child. Like, why would you put a child with somebody they don't know at all? So Chad was like, whoa, what's going on? So they gave him back the mom, and then that's when she said, oh, I think it's somebody else who's at the compound that was the father. And they tried to find a death certificate. Didn't see anything regarding a death certificate for this person, she said. But there's a whole bunch of stories. It's a lot. Also, Chad then, I forget what happened to his mom. I believe she killed herself. But Chad then basically committed, they call it a police suicide. And I believe this was Chad. I'm sorry, it's so many. I mean, 87 people survived. It's so many stories. I might be jumbling some of them up together, but I believe it was Chad that was saying like he wanted to die and all this stuff. And he I wonder, was it Chad with the school? I'm gonna pull Chad's name out. I'm gonna just say this is a story where somebody had a gun. They were like living. Oh, this one wasn't Chad. This is somebody else. So Chad died too. I'm trying to remember how Chad, it was something involved with a gun, like he did something. But this other guy, he lived like right across the street from an elementary school. The kids is outside at recess and he just shoot like 18 rounds, just shooting. I don't believe anybody died from that. Maybe 2 people died. Of course, a few injuries. Cops came in and he killed himself, but he was dressed in survival gear when the cops got in there. So I think it is Chad who then had the police suicide, which I didn't know that was a thing. So basically, yes, Chad was shooting at the police like multiple times. None of the police were murdered, but like they were defending themselves, which he ended up dying, and his death was pronounced a police suicide, which I was like, oh, haven't heard of that one. But yeah, it was a lot of stories. So if you want to get into that, listen to episode 5, or just take what I said. But I'm gonna get into why I'm losing interest. I'm really losing interest in it because the conspiracy theorist in me is scared I'm gonna believe. Like, not that I believe in Jim Jones. Like, no, I'm not. I didn't listen to 3 episodes and now I'm a believer that he's God or something. But the stories they were talking about in episode 5 had me believing that he wasn't all the way. No, he was crazy, but I do believe the government may have been on his ass. There's just too many loopholes and things. And I mean, if you've seen the previous videos, you'll see where I'm at, because like I've even said in my previous videos, like, this don't make sense, but he's crazy, so maybe this is why it don't make sense. No, this don't make sense because somebody else's hand was in the pot. I don't believe the government feared of him because they believed he was God. No, I don't think that. I do believe the government may have feared him because of his power. Like, this man had 900 plus people moved to the jungle just because he said so. So think about if he was here on this earth longer, either A, he could have brought more people to Guyana to live on a compound with him, or B, just how they were making babies on that compound, he could start his own army or his own world, which they were doing. They had their own life. So I think the government was getting scared, like, yo, if he got this much power, they got weapons, like, the bigger they become, like we need to take them out now before, like, it's 900 plus people now, but what happens when it's 900,000 people, like, you know? So I don't know, that's just my little conspiracy twist on it. But the stuff I was listening to today, I was like, he crazy. But I do think the government was like, it was just so, especially in the California, like, home base. I'm about to drive down to the court tomorrow and see, like, what records. I mean, it was just, he had believers in all the right places. So, like, where he had already had people sign faux documents about this, that, and the third, he had dirt on people and politicians, like, what? So I think they were scared as well, like, yo, he could really ruin my life if I don't continue to follow him. Because I believe people didn't want to follow him no more. And that was, like, the fear, like, dang. Because he was threatening people. It was this one weird story. Well, interesting story. I believe the family's last name was the Mills. A lot of them went to the compound, and they were squad deep. I think it was about, like, 7 of them. Well, one of their children was being reprimanded because they broke a rule, and it was something outrageous. Like, the child, it was child abuse. The child got hit on their butt like 117 times with a paddle. So they up and ran. Like, they ran back to the US, and he was calling their house like every day, threatening them. And then there's a recording of, I believe, the daughter, like, saying, stop fucking calling us. Like, why are you doing this? Like, we don't want to be out there. Leave us alone. And then they became public speakers outing them. Like, they had like a whole media, like, press release thing going, like, this dude's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then they had, they did some interviews, like, with the FBI. And then the day of their last interview, they died. Some of the neighbors say they saw a white van leave. The day everybody in the house died, everybody in the house died except for the son. He was in his room smoking weed and playing, like, video games, but he had headphones on. I'm sorry, no shade, but in, like, the 70s, 80s, y'all ain't had no Beats by Dre. So how the fuck you ain't hear everybody in the house get murdered, but everybody was, like, shot? He had gun residue on his hands, but once again, I don't trust government. So I don't know, did they do it? I don't know if some of Jim Jones survivors do it, because they were all loopy. And then some of the survivors were diehard people that it's like, okay, are they going to try to continue his legacy? Are they now back on the same side where they're like, okay, we were brainwashed? Because you can hear in the recordings, they're like, yeah, we were brainwashed, and it's not our fault, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, are they saying that just so they don't get in trouble? Or are they saying that because they believe it? So that's where I'm starting to get a headache listening to it, because I'm like, I don't know what to believe. Like, but I am very interested in their lives today. Like, I want to know, how are they functioning in this world? Yeah, I'm getting a headache just processing it, so I'm done.